We did a video recently on 27 English phrasal verbs, plus quite a few, that we use on the job. Well, today we're going to talk about it.
I've got questions for you. What's up, guys, and welcome back to Wagwell Friends English. Let's kick it off with one question, which is, what job did your family consider you for before you became an English teacher? Like, what did they think you were going to do? What did they want you to do, kind of thing?
Whoa. I'm not sure. There was a lot of things, actually. Like, a lot of things. For a while, it was being a pilot or being a wildlife officer, like working in conservation and stuff like that on a national park. What else was there? Business there for a little bit because I enjoyed like doing business-like things. It was kind of a range of things. Teacher was on there, but I think there was more of an idea of like there's going to be a lifestyle of teaching because that's what I was around a lot. And I enjoyed teaching martial arts in high school. I enjoyed teaching people how to do stuff with horses and things of that nature. So I think there was a little bit of, I'm always going to be a teacher no matter what I end up doing. So interesting. What about for you?
My family definitely thought I was going to be an engineer. Me and my brothers all have a very engineering kind of mindset. They applied it to technology and computers. For me, I was always the kid that would make my parents so mad because I would take a clock and I would take the clock apart thinking, how does this like electric clock work? And then I could not put it back together. And so my mom would come home, she'd see this disassembled clock. She gets so mad at me. But when I went to university, that was one of the things she said. She was like, I want you to do engineering. I want you to get an engineering degree because you love that. You love building, you love destroying things, you love building it again better. And so that was the thing that they thought that I was going to be before I became an English teacher.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, in my defense, those kind of go together. So how do you become an English teacher? Well, you take the English language and you treat it like that alarm clock. Yeah. And you just pull it apart. Hopefully it gets back together.
You do very much bring to your teaching like this, well, how does it work really? Like, let's take it apart and then talk about like how those pieces come together. That's very much the way you teach. So it's interesting because you brought that mechanical mindset and you brought it to language and culture and understanding how things work. So I have a question for you. Would you rather work in a large company with all the benefits that brings or a small company? Like if you could not be a business owner, do you think you would prefer a small company or a large company?
I think I'd still prefer a small company. Having our experience that we do, I know what it's like to be in a small company. I also know how valuable a really good hard worker is to a small company. In another way, I also know how incredibly scalable it can be to be in a small company. For me, I personally would see that and be like, I'm probably not going to be a part of the next Apple or the next Google or whatever, but I know that through my efforts, it could actually help real people and real colleagues. Not like colleagues around the world, but like colleagues that are sitting right next to me for us all to kind of get better.
So you feel like you would have more ownership then? More
ownership, but also more help. Like in a big company, I would be doing a job, but like I'm not going to do a job that makes an exponential difference in the company. It's going to be like, you're a franchise and somebody's got to be the cook. You're a franchise, somebody's got to be a manager. So it's like, as a manager, I ran my store really well, but that only makes a profit margin difference to an executive. Like it's not like, hopefully I'd be able to have an impact on the people below me or around me as well, but like, more than that, for a small company, it'd be really nice to be able to say, like, I know John is at a better place now because of all the work I did. I'd made that document, I made that training document, so he has less of a hard time training people because of my work. That's a good feeling. I
guess it's easy to feel like a cog in a bigger machine with a large company, but at the same time, you really work overtime or more is expected of you in a smaller company. I wonder if there's a difference for you in whether it's an LLC where you have ownership, like when the company grows, your share grows, or is it something like just a startup, like a complete startup that's maybe it's an S Corp or C Corp, it doesn't matter, but if it's a complete startup, like does the structure of the business legally impact whether you would prefer to be a part of a small business or a large company?
I think it does impact. I think if it's just like my desire, that's one element of it. But if it's like no, we're actually going to partner with each one of our employees and they're going to get a small percentage of the profit, then I feel like that is kind of an exciting workplace to be a part of.
Like, not only do you work there and get paid from it, but you also get dividends.
I know that some people, the devil's advocate side of it would say maybe that some people could write off the coattails of others to be like, that person works really hard because that person works really hard. It's like a group project. It's exactly like a group project, but in university, but in real life. And if you can find a good team who's all on board with this, which could happen in a small company, then that's an exciting place to be.
It would be, but the team makes the work environment, which large companies, that's the case as well. Your team really makes or breaks that work environment. But I feel like if you're part of a small company and the weight is kind of fairly evenly distributed on all of your shoulders and you know it and you see it and every little thing that you do like has an impact of some kind or something that you can see in the company and the way that it moves, I can see how that would be like just alluring to a way. Especially having been business owners already, I think that's part of it because I'm the same. I would choose a small company, but not necessarily for the same reasons. I would choose the same company because you grow so aggressively when you're part of a small company because you do have to wear so many hats. Maybe not as many as being a business owner, but you have a lot. So it is riskier though, because it's easier for a startup, especially, or just a smaller company to be like, you know, it could be merged with a bigger company or to just not weather like the economy that well and the changes in things very well. But at the same time, I feel like that risk, that trade-off with what you learn and how you grow and the connections that you make, I feel like that far outweighs monetary risk in a way. But again, I mean, we're at our age being able to say that. In my 50s or 60s, I might appreciate being part of a bigger company more, where I go to work, I have this set amount of tasks, I know exactly what's expected of me, and I go home and I don't have to think about work anymore. That's kind of nice at the same time, but I'm not able to not think about work. So I guess by personality, I prefer to be part of a small business.
I feel like with a big company, you have more freedom to like take off of work or not have to worry about whether work's going to carry over into the next week. Like there's some pressure that's lifted off the shoulders of everybody because there's so many people. If there's like 500 people, then if one person gets sick or have to take off work or they get behind or something, then it's not going to derail the whole company. But if there's like a team of 10 or a team of 5, and if one person gets sick, it slows it down.
Or takes a vacation. We've been part of a business before where one person took a vacation for a week and it really slowed things down quite a bit because that person was the only person who could do what they were doing. And their job was really more like 3 jobs. Yeah. So that was a lot. But you need that. You need those vacations. You need that time off at the same time. So it's definitely a challenge.
I liked how you said, though, because like being a part of a small company can upskill yourself. Like if you've never done any sort of website building, then you've never done website building. It's not like something like I have a Facebook account. Like that doesn't work that way. So for you to be a part of a small company, they're going to look at people and be like, hey, who's willing to do this? Anybody willing to take on these tasks? Anybody? And then that's a good place, a really valuable place that you can do stuff, help somebody, upskill yourself.
The last question I have for you is a little bit more informal. What was the last job or task that you got roped into?
Let me use an easy one.
Okay.
Blackberries. A couple of weeks ago, you started pulling weeds out of our blackberry patch, and now it looks amazing. But it also is a decent amount of work. And
they had been neglected for a while. Blackberries like that. I will say, if you've never had a blackberry, they're very good. But they like to be forgotten and just left to do what they do. And that's what we had done. But it was very difficult to pick blackberries last year. So now's the time to do that in our area. And I feel like we really needed to do something. I didn't ask you to help, but I feel like you were just like, I'm going to help. But you felt like by the relationship that you had to do.
It's really actually goes back to like the small company kind of mentality where it's like, yes, absolutely. I could be like, well, that's your job. I'm not going to do your job for you. Like I could do that, but that's just, if I'm thinking about it in terms of like a company, that's hurting every person in that company. For me just to be like, well, I'm going to sit back. I'm not really going to do much work because, I mean, if you want to be snowed under work, that's fine. I don't want to be, so I'm not going to. But what that does is it just makes it to where it's harder on that person and that person and that person. So instead, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I might as well just go out there and help as well. Like, I might as well put, 110%. I might as well do as much as I can as well, because then it's lighter on both shoulders. We have this idiom in English where we say, many hands makes light work. And I feel like that's the case. Like, if it's one person's job to go out there and weed the entire blackberry patch, that is a difficult job. That's not enjoyable to be spending 2 weeks to try to do this. But if you go out there together and you spend like a week or, a few days weeding the blackberry patch, then both of you have a good experience. One person's not completely debilitated because their back is just destroyed. Like, you might as well.
You might as well. I agree. But at the same time, like, I wonder how much you felt roped into it. Because roped into doesn't mean like you want to. If that makes sense. Or you feel like it's not like you were told to do that. Here recently, I was kind of roped into volunteering in the nursery at our local church. Like, I do that anyway because my kids are in nursery too. Yeah. But I feel like sharing the responsibility with other moms is great. With other parents is great. But one week that it was not my week to be in there, I felt kind of roped into it because one of the parents didn't show up. The other parent was there and was like, it's just me with all these toddlers running around. And so I was like, I felt kind of roped into it a little bit, but at the same time, I was glad to be roped into it. I'd rather be there as another pair of hands and another set of eyes watching all these toddlers, like, play with toys and stuff and struggle with sharing. That's a thing, to struggle with sharing. I would rather be there and help in case of something happening than to not be there and to just kind of go away. I was roped into it a little bit, but I was also glad to be roped into it. So again, it's kind of like what you're talking about.
When people have a common identity of some sort, I think that's kind of the best place to be, just because it's not like they have to do something. It's not I have to show up. It's not like I have to pick blackberries. It's not like I have to manage the kids. The task has to get done. Relationally, it's a get to.
I get to do this. Yeah. I get to help. I get to pull weeds with you out in the massive blackberry patch, or get to help somebody else, help another parent, like take care of a bunch of kids.
It's all about like service, right? And serving other people. The older I get, the more I realize that all of life is just about helping another person in like a business sense, and like they have a need, you fulfill that need, whether it's Google or Apple or whatever. So that was a lot. If you listen carefully, no, not every single sentence that we use was laced with the phrasal verbs that we talked about previously. But that's not the point. The point of these conversation videos, like we normally say, is to have a natural conversation. So I do, editing wise, I do take out some of the ums, some of the likes, but it's very natural. This is how we actually speak.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.